Welcome back, CSE 235, to exercise 9, where we're working with our Flask tutorial, and we're following along with Corey Schaefer, and he's kind of in his part 2 video here where he's working with templates, and we're going to start doing that. And again, I'm doing it with you so that we can do it in Replit, and I could explain some things that hopefully make some sense as you're doing it. And where we left off was we had our Flask blog here, and we also had an about page. And we could just do /about. And that's all we have so far. And what we did was we served these pages from Python. So we have a Python list with some library items in them, and then we have these roots and these functions which are basically serving the pages. So they're presenting the pages that we're actually using here. And we have an about and we have an index, and on our index we're using this information, the variables, and running a loop from the Python code, and we're also plugging in some title information. Now this is just scratching the surface on what we're going to be doing with templates. And templates make sense when you have one template. Now on our about page we have the same thing here. So it kind of goes against the rules of working with a template. We should have one parent template and the children should be basically making small alterations. And that's not happening so far, but this is just a little introduction. So we're going to start doing that next, and that's what Corey does next. He creates a layout.html and brings in everything that's being shared between all the files, and then for our individual files we'll just plug in what we need, the actual content we need in there. And we're going to keep using this kind of template language. It's using Python, but it's called Jinja 2 with these percents and curly braces. So it's kind of made for creating templates. It's not basic Python. You don't use Python turtles when you're using basic Python, so it's kind of this variation that's used for this purpose with Flask. So that's what we're kind of doing here, and we're going to do a little bit more of that. So we're going to create a file which is layout.html. So we're going to go here, and it's in this template folder, so we'll go here and call it layout.html. So this will be kind of our template. And there's nothing in here now, and what we can do is just go to our, I guess it doesn't matter which one, we could go to our about page and just highlight all this information and bring this in here, because this is going to be on every page. So we're going to kind of bring in everything that's shared first, and then we'll individualize it. For example, this stuff is shared on both pages. So all this stuff here. Now this about Flask is not, so we're going to change what's in the body, but we'll copy everything and we'll put it in this layout.html for now. We'll get rid of this about Flask. So right now this could work for the home page, or this could work for the about page. And that means if there's a title already in it, meaning a title variable, which we passed in our Python here, title equals about. So that's passed in there. So when it sees that, it's going to put Flask dash whatever that is. And if not, it's just going to put Flask blog, which is our home page right now. Now that could change, but we'll keep that in there. So that's shared between the two pages. So when we work on our page right now, we could go to the index one and kind of alter that a little bit. But this is going to be our template so far. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to index. And now because we have all that stuff in here, we don't need any of this here. We're only going to need really the body section, what's going in the body section. So we're going to just kind of put this stuff and wipe it out for now. And then we're going to have to block this in. Now what we can do is go back to our layout.html, and in this body area we're going to almost do like a placeholder, and it's called like a block, and we could give it a name, and we're going to use that Jinja 2 templating language for that. So again, we'll use a curly brace and parentheses, and then parentheses, curly brace. And what we're going to do in here is we're going to just start it off with something called block. That's a keyword. And then we're going to call it content. You could call it something else, but this is the keyword. This is what you're calling it. And just like when we used this before, when we're done, you could put it underneath here if you want, and you could copy this. Actually, it showed up right there when I did it. But if you copy this and paste this here, you could just say end block. And that's kind of the structure that it's been using. So that's going to be kind of a placeholder for anything in our layout.html. So we're in this layout.html, so this is kind of, that's our template. So we're going to be able to plug in different things in here. So for the home page, we're going to plug in that blog information. For the about page, we'll plug in something for the about. So that's kind of the way things are working here, and it's going to use this. Now we're going to have to serve this as a parent template to the other pages. So the way that works is you use something called extends. So we'll go here and write some code that says extends. This line of code here will basically tell it to use the layout.html as the parent. So this is setting up index as the child of layout.html. And the way we do that is extends, and then we'll just do, and it's coming up here, and we'll just put layout.html. Now it's coming up with base, but I'll just hit tab. We don't want base, but this will be layout because that's what we're using. That's what Corey used on that. So we're using that. We don't need this extra. So that should point to this page and say, hey, use the layout from here. And we're also going to have to set this part up as a block so it knows to go into body. So what we'll do down here, we'll leave it indented the way it is. I'll move it down here a little bit. I'll leave it indented. And then I'll go here, and I'll put another line here just to separate it from this extends. And what we're going to do is just put in content block. Now it's coming up with something already, and you don't have to do that. You could just type it yourself. We're going to put in block content because that's what's going in there. And remember, block is a keyword, content is a name. So it's going to be filling this in from the layout page. Remember, the layout page has this block content and block. And in here, this is basically indicating that this is the block content that's going to go into that page. So I'm going to go here and move out to the side and just finish this off with an end block. Now, Corey recommends putting the name here. That you don't have to do this. He recommends putting content here just in case you have multiple blocks. You can keep track of them better because remember, this is your name, the name you gave it. You could have gave this something else. You could have gave it some other kind of name, but we're just calling it content, very general kind of name right now. Remember, keyword name. And what that should do is that should fill in that information on this particular page, on the index page. So we're on the index page. It's getting information from the layout, the template, and it has all this stuff on the page. So it has all the HTML you need. It has the title. The only thing it's doing in here in body, it's knowing to put in this block content, which you're indicating right here. And this is telling it to get it from there. So this same kind of thing is going to go into the about page. So we can actually copy all of this and put it to the about page. Go to about. Now I haven't done anything with about yet. And we can get rid of everything here. Because remember, we're pulling it in from layout. So I'm going to get rid of everything here and put that in. Now, we don't want this here. What we want is just whatever we had on there. We just had something like about Flask or something. We had about Flask was our only content so far. So we didn't have this block here with posts or anything like that. But we can just do that for now. And that way we still have about Flask on here. And if you want to just go in here and put like a P, I'll do P tab. And then I'll just put lorem 20. And I'll hit tab. And just make a little blurb in there. So there's something in there. So we have kind of a headline and some body copy in there. So this is pulling in, this is now the about page, and that's pulling in this stuff from here. So it's using block content. And here we're telling block content is this is the block content. So named content. So you could give it different names, but because it's sharing it from here, the content will be here. The content is this. And here the content is this. So this is where it's indicating what the content is. So you're giving it a name content. You're saying, oh, here it's the headline and it's this blog stuff. And on about, you're saying the content is this stuff. So it's just using this general content name and plugging in whatever it sees. So it's plugging in this content into the layout. And here it's plugging in this content into the original layout template, if that makes any sense. So layout is our template. And these pages are being built on that. So we're starting to see what Flask can do. It's still at the very beginnings of what we're doing here, but you can start to see what's happening and how it can start to be a little more efficient other than just plugging in a title or anything like that. So let's see if this works. Before we do anything else, let's make sure this is working and it's working as we have it now, because we could have easily screwed something up or messed up something with the code. So let's just check out our main. Everything looks the same here. We didn't put any title for index.html. Here we put in a title about, and here's our index. That looks okay. Here's our about. That looks okay. And We looked at our layout already, block content, and then we're ending the block right there within the body tag. So everything else should be the same. So let's see how this works. I'm going to stop our server and then run our server. And we have an internal server error. And let's go here and let's refresh it, see if we get the same thing there. All right, internal server error. Either the server is overloaded or there's an error in the application. So what do you think it is? You think the server's overloaded, or do you think we made an error? Now, there's more of a chance we made an error. So let's check this out and see if we made any errors in here so far. And actually, before we go looking around, I see something here. Jinja 2 exceptions, unexpected curly brace, block content, line 3. So it's giving me some clues here. So let's see where we may have that. Now, let's look at line 3. Now, there's nothing here in line 3 in layout. So let's go to index. And that looks like, oh, look at that. Unexpected curly brace. It's even showing me line 3. So that's pretty good. It wasn't an internal server error. It's something we did, or I did, obviously. So here I'm missing a % sign. And sometimes the autocorrect kind of messes me up when we do that. It helps sometimes, but other times it's a little confusing when it's showing things that I'm almost thinking about. So that looks like the error there. Now let's make sure it's not also on the About page. And it is. It's also on the About page. I'll hit a space. I'll hit the % sign. And again, what we want to do to make sure it's working now, again, let's stop our server. Let's run our server. And I'm not seeing any purple, because I guess purple's bad from what I saw. So let's go here and let's refresh it. And there's our little paragraph. So that's new. We put that in there. And let's take away the About and just look at the home page. That should be our blog. So that's working. So our template is working so far. So our layout template is working. And just doing that, you could keep going with the Corey video, or you could say, let me try this, or let me try that. You know, that's where this is neat. Like, you start to see it. This is part 3 of the video, and we're just starting to see some things where it's like, oh, I see what you can do here. Let's make another page and put something else in there. And let's put something on the layout page. So anything you're going to want on every page, let's say you put a nav bar. And you could go get it from Bootstrap. That's what Corey does. He gets it from Bootstrap. He has some snippet code, but it looks a lot like the Bootstrap stuff. I think he might have made variations of it a little bit, but we'll just take stuff from Bootstrap. And we could put that on every page. We could put a copyright at the bottom. We could put a footer on every page. All of that would go in here. If you ever worked with Dreamweaver in the past, they used to have these templates that you could kind of build like that. But you know, then you're learning Dreamweaver, and Dreamweaver hasn't been what everybody works with. This is kind of more generalized, that a wider variety of people do that without having to have the Adobe suite and do everything Adobe's way. So you know, this templating is something that everybody can learn, everybody can work with. And again, we're talking server side here, because your regular web server isn't going to serve Python code. So that's something that's being interpreted. This Python code is being interpreted first, and then it's dynamically generating these pages. And again, these pages, when you look at them, you're just going to see, I'll just do view page source. You're just going to see this code here. You're not going to see any Python. You're not going to see any of that. You're only seeing what's generated. This is the static page that's generated. So you're not seeing any of that behind the scenes. So when people can't see that, that's a good example. This is back end, because nobody can see this. Looking at code, going here and viewing page source, that's not back end. Anybody can do that. It's just pulling away the curtain and looking at the code. People don't like to look at code because they don't understand it, but you do. But that's nothing that's protected. Everybody can see that. They can copy it. You can do whatever you want with it. But that's what's being displayed on the page. People don't want to look at a page that looks like this. People want to look at a page that looks like this, or even nicer when we style it. But this stuff is back end. So that's being handled on the server. We're not doing that. The browser isn't doing that. You might say, well, we're doing it in a browser. We're doing it on a cloud environment in Replit. Replit's doing that with their servers, their cloud servers in here. So we're doing that using that method. So we're virtually making it seem like we're using a server, but that's server side. So we're doing things that we can't do on the front end, back end. This is back end. This is back end. So that's what we're doing here, and we're doing it to make it more efficient. So far, it seems like a lot of work. You'd be like, wow, I'd rather just use HTML, CSS, and JS. But this is what people are starting to do a little bit more when they make bigger, scalable kind of sites. So let's stop here for part 3. This is a good place to stop. We didn't do a whole lot, but we worked with our template a little bit, and we'll continue with part 4 to do a little bit more and do a little bit more styling with this.